Appraisal Practices Board, the APB. It's the first new board we've had at the foundation in 20 years. This thing was established to provide guidance to appraisers from all valuation disciplines, all the disciplines covered in USPAP, on valuation. Every now and then this thing moves forward without touching it. On valuation methods and techniques, particularly on emerging issues. This is, for lack of a better word, the how-to board. You have the qualifications board, how do you become, what you have to do to get it to be an appraiser. You have the ASB, the performance standards and conduct that you have to follow, and this is how you actually practice. We feel that we're filling a void. The majority of real estate appraisers do not belong to an organization like NAIFA. In fact, only about 30,000 appraisers out of 87,500 belong to an appraisal organization. So where do they get their guidance from? And the catalyst here was a few years ago, 07 and 08. You had a lot of appraisers come in during that decade of 2000 to 2010, and they had never seen a down market before. Most of them didn't know what a short sale was. Few had seen foreclosures. Now all of a sudden you got 3 or 4 of them in a 2-block area. What do you do with them? And then who do you ask? That's what got the conversation started about this idea of a practices board. The board was constituted on July 1, 2010. John's an original member of that board. Unlike the ASB and AQB, it doesn't have congressional authority. But neither did the ASB or AQB when they were created. They were out for a year and a half, and then Congress said, you're doing good work, we're going to give you authority. So we'll see what happens down the road. So the guidance is strictly voluntary. The boards are structured very similar to the ASB and AQB. And here's how the board operates. What they did is they sent a survey out to all stakeholders, regardless of your discipline. What areas, particularly in the areas of emerging issues, do you feel there's an absence of guidance for you to do your job? They then got all these topics and they prioritized them. A 7-member board cannot be experts in everything. It doesn't work that way. So what we do is we use what's called our subject matter expert panels. So we go out and we find experts in specific areas. Frankly, they do a lot of the heavy lifting. Members of the APB work with them, kind of guide them, and then the APB back and forth with the subject matter expert panel makes decisions about the content, and then it's publicly exposed just like other work of the foundation. And these panels, what happens is we identify a topic, we do a paragraph or two about here's what we're looking for, we do a call for applicants, and then they all apply, and then we, as I say, we pick 6 or 7 people. This practices board has issued 2 advisory, real estate valuation advisories this year. We have them in other areas, but the 2 real estate ones are residential appraising in declining real estate markets and adjusting comparable sales for seller concessions. Valuation advisory, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. This one is on seller concessions. It's 17 pages long. It's broken into sections so it's easy to read. There's a bibliography in the back if you want to learn more. It's free. It's on our website. And over time, we hope to have a whole compilation of these. So you'll be able to go in and find out how to confront a particular problem that you have. Here are the topics we're working on this calendar year. Identifying comparable properties, appraising green buildings. That's going to be a series of 3. The first one is basic competency. LEED, what does that really mean? Energy Star, what the heck is that? What's a green building versus a non-green building? So that valuation advisory is sort of green building 101, for lack of a better term. When that's completed, probably in the early spring, then they're going to do appraising residential green buildings, and then one on appraising commercial green buildings. So you have 3 altogether. The next 3 they're working on are in the business valuation arena. As I said, remember this is a multidiscipline panel. The first one is the valuation of customer-related assets. What is that? If you buy an ongoing dental practice or doctor's practice and you get that list of patients with or clients with it, there's a value to that. That's what customer-related, that's a customer-related asset. The second one, control premiums for financial reporting. If there is stock out there and it's a stock corporation, how much will you pay for shares of that stock above what the market is if when you buy that stock you now have controlling interest of the company? What's the premium you'll pay to gain control of a company? So a lot of this stuff, when you first read it, you go, what the heck is that? But a lot of it makes sense once you learn it. And the last one is contingent consideration for business valuation. And that would be if I had I sold a $10 million company to Chuck, and I had 2 outstanding patent applications at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, there would be something in there that says, if the first patent application is approved, Chuck owes me another $1 million. If the second one's approved, he owes me another $500,000. It's consideration that's contingent upon an act after the sale's already taken place. Now this next topic is more what the foundation is doing as a whole, not our 3 independent boards. You know, you have 50 states and 5 territories out there, all of whom have been licensing and certifying people in various professions since day one. In comes the federal government in 1989, and these states say, well, no, we want to do it our way. So it's very difficult. You have 55 states and territories doing things 60 different ways. So it's hard to kind of get them all in line. Well, there's one commonality out there, is that they all have to enforce the same document, USPAP. Enter the Appraisal Foundation. Maybe we can, because if this thing doesn't work, we all suffer. So using USPAP as sort of the hook, first one is training sessions for state appraiser investigators. This is a joint effort by the foundation, the subcommittee, and the Association of Appraiser Regulatory Officials. Each state board, and I think Jim alluded to this, they have their own budget. There are some state boards that have full-time appraiser investigators, and there are some state boards that have to share an investigator with the one for the funeral homes and the cosmetologists and everything else. There are other state boards that contract out with appraisers, and there are other state boards that use their own board members. So we felt it was important for them to all be consistent. Never going to be uniform. We gave up on that, but can we be consistent? So we put on these 2.5-day sessions. We pay for everything. We pay for their flights and their rooms, and this is through a grant from the subcommittee. We cover all their expenses so there's no state budget issues. And over the past 5 years, we've had 375 people go through this thing. A lot of times at the foundation, like requiring a college degree, you don't see any real tangible difference for a generation. This, we've seen a difference in just a couple of years. So it's a real positive thing. Voluntary disciplinary action guidelines. What that is that we took, with the help of state regulators, we took the major provisions, primarily of standards 1 and 2 of USPAP, and then next to it we put suggestions about if someone violates that, what should be the recommended disciplinary action. Again, this is to get some consistency. You hear anecdotal stories. One appraiser has a problem with USPAP in this particular state, and he has to go to class, and over here he's fined $5,000 or something else. I mean, we want to make it somewhat of a level playing field. So they have recommended disciplinary action, and then there's also aggravating and mitigating circumstances, because it often depends. There's a lot of things that you have to take into account there. Some states are using this a lot, other states not so much. But what happens is over time is state boards develop certain philosophies, because states will hand down cases, and then now you get a new case and you look and you see what the previous boards did. Oregon, and this is based on the GAO review, if you have a problem in Oregon, you're writing a check. That's the fining state, more than not. If you're in Iowa and you have a problem, you're going to class. Education is the primary thing. North Carolina, it's suspension and revocation time. They hang you out in front of the building there. So it depends a lot, This is our web page homepage, and we have developed something called an e-library. Said 4th button down on the left-hand side there. And what we did, this was started actually to help state regulators. States can't afford to fly all their regulators to conferences each year. We had 140 at a conference this past weekend. There's probably 400 that couldn't make the conference. So we started putting training and informational videos on the website. First it was just for state regulators, and then it was like, well, let anybody look at them. I mean, if anybody wants to benefit from them. And we've done it so that they don't drag on where you're going looking at your watch or whatever. They're pretty short, they're done in chapters, they're informative. Some of them that are up there now, Introduction to Green Buildings and Evaluation. We had someone from Cushman & Wakefield, someone from the White House, someone from the Department of Energy, someone from the U.S. Green Buildings Council. We had a very good discussion on that one. USPAP for state regulators. Again, it was developed just for state regulators, but anyone would benefit by taking a look at it. We had a mock administrative hearing, including the judge, who was the former Chief Justice of the Utah State Supreme Court. So it gets you to see what it's like to actually be in an appraisal administrative hearing. And then we just released last week 3 new videos. Those changes I was talking about for 2015, 30-minute video on that. What is this Appraisal Practices Board? About a 20-minute video on that. And the last one is understanding the real property appraiser regulatory system. It's very unique to have, as Jim pointed out, you have the federal government, you have private sector, the foundation, and you have the states all working together. It doesn't happen that way. And a lot of times when you're appointed to a state board or to the state board staff, you're like, if nothing else, this thing kind of explains who's who in Hooterville, so you know what the heck is going on. So you know the difference between the Appraisal Institute, the Appraisal Foundation, and the Appraisal Subcommittee, because after a while they all start to sound like the same thing.